Call the names. Wake the room. Wake the room. Lulu! Rex! Pomeray! Naomi! Afastiana! Babbler! Monarch Soul! Jojo! Gray eyes! Fill my eyes! Poets assemble. No masks, no manners. Say it plain or say it broken. Monday night in the garden of enlightenment. Low light lit minds, every line got intent. Clock ticks crooked and the room turns vigilant. Quiet so loud you can hear what the tension meant. Then it slips after midnight, manners get murdered. Nice little masks get cracked by a word or a murmur. Twisted Tuesdays twist truth till it turns on its heel. Clean cut faces go strange when the dark gets real. You can feel that shift, that slick little slip when the grin stays sweet, but the eyes don't sit. Like the room grew ribs, like the walls grew ears, like the hush got hands and it's pulling you near. And the words don't rest, they press, put a heel on the chest, leave a dent in the breath. Every line like a knock from the back of the brain, like you came in one shape. You won't leave the same. Late night poets, where the room leans in, where the sharp gets shown in the soft door dim. Hear the whole thing shift from a whisper in the ribs to a line that lifts from the darkened edge of doubt to the pull you can't ignore. We don't just read the night, we make it something more. Say it plain, say it broken. Late night poets. Wednesday brace parts and a part sink down the spine. Half halo, half hazard, both hands in the light. Then the art as seduction walks off through the smoke. Silk on the tongue with the blade in the joke. Books and bards wakes dust in the depth of the shelves. Old ghosts lean out and start naming themselves in our coffins. Selling art, the ache gets a voice. Pain stands up straight and makes silence a choice. Then break on through when the dead boogies wave. When the masses sink but the pulses pray. Echoes in the dark go hunting to the fear. That thing with no name starts ringing in your ear. Say it. Don't water it down, let it bite, let it bloom, let it burn through the crowd. Bad company grins like a bruise, dressed smart in rhythm and rhyme. Puts a boot through the heart. Late night poets, where the room leans in, where the sharp gets shown in the soft door dim. Late night poets, hear the whole thing shift from a whisper in the ribs to a line that lifts from the darkened edge of doubt to the pull you can't ignore. We don't just read the night, we make it something more. Say it plain, say it broken. Late night poets, some come shattered, some come slick. Some speak honey with a blade in it. Some sound velvet, some sound wire. Some walk in low and take the room higher. Some come holy, some come liars. That's the thing, this ain't filler for the dead space, no. There's a pulse for the pen, this is blood with the net go. This is breath with the backbone, ink with the crown, loud mics like nerves, truth laid bare in the round. This is the beautiful mess, the bruise and the bloom, the line that cuts clean and makes a little room. Late souls, wide eyes, all nerve in the dark, a room full of hearts beating hard through the dark. Wake the room, wake the room. Oh, something more. Late night poets. When the clock slips past polite, we tell the truth. L&P, we love you. Stay frosty.
Hello. Good and evil are not black and white. We all have a little naughty and nice. Poetry allows us to explore our dark sides and shine past to the light. We write with the demons and angels on our shoulders. This is for sinners, saints, and everyone in between. Part sinner, part saint, as part of Late Night Poets. We are a group on allpoetry.com. You don't have to be in the group to participate, but it's more fun if you are, because you can talk to us in the chat, read the poems as we do, and you can see the contests that are coming up soon. So the contests are how we choose what to put on the shows. I'm Aphasiana, and with me I have Babbler. Hey, Babbler. Oh, Babbler disappeared. I'm sure that she will be back. Tonight we are going to be looking at one of her contests. And she has a pretty cool contest going on right now. It is based on things that we have said on the show in response to other poems. So her prompts were, get that up here. Her prompts were cheap things from far away, which is apparently something that I said. Fizzing magnolias, the manic pixie dream girl of flowers, which is something Babbler said very recently. I loved that one. Crying in spaces on a page, which was also Babbler. And the childhood in middle age, which was me, because I was talking about it like a second childhood. So those are our prompts. And oh, I see Babbler again. Hey, Babbler.
Hi. Hello.
I was just sharing what your contest is. Do you have anything that you want to say about it?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I caught a bit of what you were saying. I went to unmute and I accidentally just exited the whole thing. I'm like, well, that was dumb. No, I just we were talking on the not last show, but the time before, just about, how you get inspired by other poems and things people say. So, that was essentially the impetus for the contest. So I just wrote down little phrases and tidbits that we said during that show. That's the contest.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm happy that you did that contest. Last week we did the end of my previous contest and then one more contest that didn't have a whole lot of entries. Actually, it did, but not a lot of people sent in permissions to do it. So we only had a few to read out loud. And this week we're focusing on yours. And then if we go too fast, I do have another contest that we can dig into, but my plan is for that one to be next week.
Right.
Now, I'm going to skip the audio ones for now because I gave the audios to Phil very last minute, and I doubt that they're loaded yet. So, Brooke, if you're sorry, Babbler, if you notice things are getting skipped on the board, it's because I'm holding out for those the audios.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay. So the most popular prompt was the crying in spaces on a page. That was used quite a bit. But I'm gonna start with this one, which is cheap things from far away. Actually, before I do that, I do see Jojo and T Manzano in the chat, Pam, you can bring them on if you are able to do that. Oh, and it looks like my audios are loaded. Fantastic. Thanks, Pam. I'm giving her a second because I think we can add the extra people. Okay. I will read the first poem and then we shall see. So this is called Cheap Things from Far Away by Lawnmower. My mind slips back to childhood days. The figure in the cereal, green plastic soldiers, unicorns, dragons, inspired playtime unreal. Older sucker am for items cheap and cheerful, bought from China or Japan, a bird bath when it arrives smaller, made of resin, standing lower than a watering can. Yet, does this stop me from buying more? Falling for a scam? No. Cheap and cheerful cries for more. I swallow all the stories. How to lose weight, magic birds, sweetly aim to reach my core. Can I be saved, rewired, educated when again another cheap offer lands? No, not I, the foolish one. Watch the video, hear the words. Money slips through my hands. And yet again, my debit card has bought cheap things from abroad. End poem.
Well, let me read for one. And I felt this felt like a little I felt a bit of humor in this piece. That it felt a little, I'm trying to find the word, a little jokey, but not in a negative way, this trying to make light of maybe a somewhat irresponsible shopping habit. Where it's like, I keep buying stupid things. I liked the example, especially of the resin bird bath that ended up being like, or it might have been house, that was much smaller than anticipated. Because it's like, oh yeah, I bought this birdhouse, and when it showed up, it just absolutely wasn't what you expected, which is kind of a classic thing to happen when you buy something on like Temu or similar, Alibaba, that kind of stuff, to not quite get what you want, to have it be like misleading ads, and yet to not learn from that lesson, like to just keep repeatedly buying these cheap and poorly made goods. It and yet, while they're kind of lambasting themselves in a way, uh they're also just, it's kind of lighthearted, like, oh silly me, I just keep doing this, like I'll never learn. So I think it makes a good point, and I think it does it in a fairly lighthearted way that made it a bit fun. What did you think?
Yeah, I do agree that it has a light-hearted but like self-depreciating kind of feel to it. And I think it does a good job because it is a lot of nostalgia things that that these things play on. Like when I'm on Facebook, all the ads are like, "Did you grow up in the 90s? Buy these toys again." And it's like the really cheap versions of toys from that era. So I think that slips back in the childhood days line is a really good one. And cheap and cheerful is a fun little alliteration, and the fact that it doesn't say and, it just has the little somehow makes it cutesy. I like the tiny little bird bath. I actually I made that mistake recently. I was buying these like glass ball things that were going to become terrariums, and I'm just going to make art with the kids at work, and then clearly I did not read it properly, or it came not the right size, I'm not sure which, because the little terrariums that came were like smaller than my fingernail, and I'm like, yeah, we're not going to be able to fill that. So it was just like ridiculous. But yeah, I know it's hard, because even if you know it's probably not going to be great. You have lower expectations for it. It's you are aware it might not be what it says. We still do it. And I'm bad for that. At first I would tell my mom, don't do that. Don't buy from there. It's a scam. And now I do too. So I can't talk. But my mom definitely falls for it a lot more than I do, where she'll buy a whole bunch of stuff and she'll be like, it doesn't look like it was supposed to. And I'm like, no, mom, you get what you pay for. You really do get what you pay for. Yes.
My mom bought a couch literally off of Wish or Temu. I don't remember. And I'm like, oh God, mom. Like, no, not a couch. Like, that's like, I'm like, that's got to be one of the worst things that you could buy. It's a couch. It actually is not bad. It showed up and it was way better than expected. I was surprised, and I told her, like, don't expect this every time. This is like miraculous, okay? Don't assume this is gonna be the experience. I'm shocked.
I mean, sometimes you get really lucky because it's not just like one seller. Like Temu is a whole bunch of different sellers. So if you pay attention to like their ratings and stuff, there are some that are really good. And then there are others that are not great. So you gotta be wary. That's all. But I thought this poem was fun in its tone and accurate in its self-reflection of like, we know things are going on and yet we haven't properly trained ourselves to respond to what we know. And I mean, I should really know better because like I teach people how to find reliable sources and there I am using an unreliable source. That's just not quite right. Whoops. It's like a dietitian just eating a bunch of junk food. Yeah, so that's great. The next one we're going to do is by Weaver of Dreams, and this is responding to the prompt Fizzy Magnolias. This one we do have an audio for. So, hold on, I have too many windows open. I'm trying to figure out. There we go. Okay, that's the Weaver of Dreams link. And Pam, when you are ready, please play the one. I know there's two by Weaver of Dreams, so we want the one that is Magnolia Do It, please.
Almost ready to venture out into London's elite society. But what else, mon cher? Avant-garde? Obviously. I have an image to uphold. After all, one is a duet. Wait, something seems odd, unbalanced. Can you spot it? I've lost an earring, you say. That is something I've feared. Disaster will rethink the look. If I wore only one, I'd look weird.
So this has a kind of well, I mean, it even says elite. It has a posh kind of feel to it, talking about the elite and, having that little bit of French, mon cher, even though it's in London. It's like, it's very international, London being a place that would have like a fashion scene, I would imagine, as someone who doesn't follow fashion, and has like the name brand, Do It. And there's like that fear of looking odd, which is so opposite of me because I will like purposely wear just one just because I like being weird and off center. But I like the way this is almost conversational in that it's like disaster will rethink the look, and I think that's an internal dialogue there, rather than a back and forth, because when there actually is dialogue, there's the quotation marks, and in the end, it feels more like something that she's thinking to herself. So this is a nice brevity. What do you think, Babbler?
Yeah, I liked the irony of this piece. It's definitely, it's a brevity, but it's almost ready to venture out into London's elite society. But what else, mon cher? Avant-garde, obviously. So they're dressed weirdly. They're dressed boldly and a little bit strange. Like avant-garde looks aren't really intended for like daily wear. Except for the few and the artsy and the weirdly bold. It's a certain personality type. You're doing a certain thing. If you've decided to just traipse around in like an avant-garde styling. It's unusual, it's atypical. And yet they're concerned about only having one earring. Oh no, it'll rethink the look. If I wore only one, it'd look weird. Well, they're already dressed weird. So like, so their definition of weird is quite atypical, it's totally normal for them, but to only have one earring, meanwhile they're like wearing a spacesuit or something. So, there's this a bit of irony in it. There's this bit of perspective to it, like what's weird, that kind of depends on who you are, which I think plays nicely with the idea of like a fizzing magnolia. It's not something that's normal, and to be normal is like almost abnormal. I also thought there was a little bit of a wordplay, perhaps, not sure if intentional, but with after all, one is a duet, and it sounds a little bit like a duet, and concerned about one earring, but one is a duet. There, so it's that feels like a little bit of a play on words to me, because one can't really be a duet, and yet there's this trip up over one versus two earrings at the same time. Needing to have two earrings, else they'd look strange in their avant-garde ensemble. So I enjoyed this. It was a little tongue-in-cheek. Yes, a little posh, a little off-kilter, but I think that's the play on the manic pixie, right? So, I enjoyed this piece. I thought it was well done.
I really like that. I didn't think about it as the duet, but in a way, one being a duet is sort of like how it seems like she's talking to herself at the end. So there's that, maybe you're a duet in that you're of two minds, just kind of, having that talking to yourself, not in like a mentally ill way, just in a debating things kind of way. Well, my one friend gets teased because there was one time when we were in school where she said, well, my brain says this, but my other brain thinks this. We were like, your other brain? But it was really just like being able to see both sides. And sometimes that is not something that's easy. So the duet of one could be the two-sided thing, but you're right, it really plays on it where she only has one earring when it should be a duet in a way of a pair. But yeah, I like that you pointed out the irony of like that avant-garde stuff, worrying about being weird when it is very weird usually. It's always interesting to me that like they have these fashion shows where it's like completely over the top, and then like not really show off the stuff that is like what people would actually wear. And so like they, I don't know, fashion shows to be something that like it's like, oh yeah, I should get that. Not like I don't know. I clearly don't understand the fashion industry. I tend to wear very eccentric, low budget stuff. So I am not their target audience in the fashion industry, but I am the target audience for this poem. I really enjoyed that.
I guess I think of avant-garde and runway style looks as more of like art, almost like a fancy hanger or like a demonstration of skill, and like that's not the piece you're supposed to buy. You're not if you're buying that, you're an art collector.
True.
And then they have the stuff that's like actually intended to be worn. So
yeah, that's fair. I love seeing like originals of art, but I can never afford it. So I was at a Renaissance fair this weekend, which was absolutely wild because usually I go to like reenactment things where it's like very historical. And this one was like fairies and goblins and like all different imaginary creatures that people were dressed up as. And it was just like awesome. But anyway, there were about 60 booths of people selling art, and most of them had like big originals of their paintings, which I could never afford because they were like $1,000. Or they had little like postcard prints of them and stickers. So I got a lot of stickers because I'm like, I love the art, but I cannot afford the things and don't really have wall space for them. So my contribution of supporting the artist was like buying a sticker from each person. Um, they were just really cool. So art, sometimes you can't get the really wild stuff, but you can perhaps collect on a smaller scale. Our next poem is by Peter Solway, and Babbler, I think it's your turn to read.
It is. This is a Slut for Contest Prompts by Peter Solway. To win the race of time, beat all seasons. Lunar winters all the same. Cheap dust, pockmarked rock. Barely visible, blind faith in bargains. Barfly Buke to soldier on. Manic Irish lass, another drink to shout. Ophelia to drown. Bartender to call an ambulance. Run down by that hit and run moon. Pretty pixie, once young as everything, now menopausal, crying, all her children gone. Fathers, alcoholic authors, Steinbeck, Hemingway, victims of encroaching age, still playing with Christmas toys. Death to level the green playing field. Winners, losers, all compost. All in time's cruel refrain of loss and lost. Buke to burp. Libraries to close each night. Sad vacuum of night, knowing all this. End poem.
Thanks, Babbler. And thank you, Peter. I think part of the title is related to the fact that he used at least two, I think more of the prompts. He couldn't decide on one prompt. He was just left for all the prompts. Just wanted to, be with all of them. That's kind of how I interpret that title to some degree. Plus, he just likes to throw in that kind of language. The part about the pretty pixie becoming menopausal was interesting because it's true. When you're young and pretty, you can be that kind of like absent-minded, eccentric, kind of like all over the place person, and people think you're adorable. But as you age, you're supposed to, take on a different role. People want you to be like the mother kind of person, or like not necessarily mother, but like different kind of vibes. And sometimes it's not something that you grow out of. It's like your personality, or something about you. So that manic pixie dream girl kind of thing is not necessarily just when you're young. That's just when it's desired. So those of us who are middle-aged and still kind of the less pretty, still manic pixie, it's a thing that happens. Now I don't have an empty nest because I never, well, I do, but I never had a full nest. And I'm not menopausal, but still, I feel personally attacked by the third stanza. And then, it's true. There's a lot of like classic authors who were alcoholic, especially like old white men alcoholics. It's just like the stereotype of like the classic authors, victims of encroaching age, and yet I think there's somehow like a glamorization of like the grumpy old men with their glass of whiskey and their, for some reason I'm picturing like patched elbow jackets, like the old school professor style. I don't know why that's how I picture it, but it is something about like being in like the drawing room with the cigars and the victims of encroaching age, whereas the women kind of are pushed aside once they're middle-aged. The men become like more, I don't know, respected, and still playing with Christmas toys. So that's the thing, because even though they're in many ways all grown up, they are still, you know, little boys at heart, a lot of them, as I see with my partner who plays like Warhammer with all the little guys. And yeah, I can't talk. We all have our little toys, and some of them more grown up than others, but we still have that kind of spirit within it. And then Buke to Burp, I kind of thought Buke is Bukowski, the poet, but I may be wrong there. Yeah, you think so too?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not just in my mind. Okay, cool. And libraries to close each night. Yes, true. Although, it's actually night. Like, mine closes at 9. I don't know, some people were like, "Oh, I don't know why you're not open after like 9 to 5 work hours." And I'm like, we're open until 9. Oh, like, why are you mad about it if you don't check? Anyway, yeah. So Peter, as always, a little bit obscure, but actually, references that I understood this time. So yay us. Together. Fabler, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought this was a fairly interesting write. A bit introspective, this to win the race of time, beat all seasons, which nobody does, right? Lunar winter's all the same, cheap dust, pockmarked rock, barely visible, blind faith and bargains. And I think cheap dust, pockmarked rock is a tie-in to cheap things from far away. It's just not, I think, the way people expected it to be done. I think that was an unexpected tie-in, kind of moon dust, right? But like nobody really wins that fight. The race against time is so far by humans unbeatable. Barfly Buke to soldier on, manic Irish lass, another drink to shout, Ophelia to drown. These are all, people who, like have fallen victim to time, like that aren't around, that there's that tie-in to time and aging in that, which I thought was, an interesting, right? And of course the little poke at Buke, which with the title like slut for contest prompts, I feel like there's a little bit of riffing there as well, with Bukowski. All of these people are different, right? Bukowski, an Irish woman, Ophelia, menopausal women, fathers, famous authors, but they've all been like diminished by time. I do think the menopausal figure is definitely a reference to the manic pixie dream girl, once young, now menopausal. And I feel it's interesting because it is misspelled, but it almost, because of the misspelling, makes me put more emphasis on the men in menopausal, which makes me laugh because it's just like, don't want dudes. Which I thought was really entertaining in a way. But this transience of women especially, women of a certain age, you almost become in some ways invisible feeling. all these things that society kind of pushes onto women as being like their contributions and values to society kind of diminish at that point, whether intentional or not. And then this look at writers too, fathers, alcoholic authors, Steinbeck, Hemingway, also victims of encroaching age. These are people who also died. They may have in some ways succeeded, like we all still know who they are, right? But they're also not alive. And then yes, that's still playing with Xmas toys, this still being like young at heart, still having that kind of ingrown youth, but it doesn't really matter because as young, no matter how young you feel, time is going to win. It's the universal leveling of everything. Winners, losers, all compost. Doesn't really matter how you did in your life. Everybody's kind of going to do the same in their death. It's a very blunt memento mori there. Death to level the green playing field. If life is a game or a competition or a stage or a field of play, death will come for us all. So and it's in some ways it's like humanity itself will at some point as a total end as well, just as it once came to be. I think this is a race that you're going to lose against time, and that it affects everyone. Is kind of how I read this. So yes, and I do think you definitely tied into more than one prompt here. So I thought this was a great write, Peter. Thank you.
Okay, you said something in there that I think has to go in our next contest of things that we said. You said ingrown youth. I don't know. It's like ingrown hair. Your ingrown youth. I don't know. That amused me. It's not just your inner youth, your ingrown youth. Okay. Very fun. Oh yeah. My next one is by our good friend Dan, Poetry and Percussion. Epiphora blepharospasm. Oh my God, Dan. Good. Why am I doing this to myself? Okay, let's try that again. Epiphora blepharospasm by Poetry and Percussion. I talk to a friend, family, a stranger, less and less knowing the difference. They look in my eyes and think themselves documentarians of my sadness. Serenade my woeful whispers, basically me whining about things. But the blinks go unnoticed. Let the myriad ways of the ignorance of man triumph at its might and dwarf even Sahara sand grains. Eyes project, self-bleeding subject, and sleep eyes closed, I am subjected. Palpebral conjunctiva, retractable movie screen, sleep attack hidden demons, as tears of torment are hidden behind closed eye screams. Unsoftened by social distortion are invisible tears behind closed doors. 100 milliseconds of a blink of an eye will hold the truth, since youth untold. Just no one thinks to look at blinks. And as I close my eyes at night and attempt at peace, but demons I fight, they're on my only sight. So with black and blue blood of ink, I think and write a bleeding blight, the power of words as the deadliest sword. But what powers the words, the real story to behold? I wash away the black and blue ink blood to distort a rant into a rewarding, readable record. Alliteration attached to alleviate tenacious tension. I wash away the ultimate truth. I protect the sanctuary of self. And I give treasure to the mysteries of the why of the words. Crying in spaces on the page. End poem.
I rather liked this piece. I thought it was an interesting take on the prompt for sure. This concept of the eyes, to me it feels like it's about like the unreliability of observation, the difference between what people think they understand about someone and what they actually are going through. Faces aren't perfect. Some people, express their real emotions rather bluntly on their face, and others don't. Others, or worse, there's people who manipulate with their face. The title, the epiphora blepharospasm is like watering eyes while blinking. To me that feels like holding back tears, resisting tearing up, or like, but it could also just be having watery eyes and blinking a lot. But I was feeling it has a little bit more, to do than that. There's this concept, I think, that is central to the piece. They look in my eyes and think themselves documentarians of my sadness. So people think they understand the narrator. They construct narrators based on like the visual cues that the person is giving, and that's what they think is real. But they miss things. People miss things. They don't understand. You're not like in the person's head, and the idea here, I think, is that the real emotion and the real what's going on is in the blink, and not so much the tears, and not the emotional performance, the noticeable things, but the little things, the little moments that go unnoticed and unanalyzed. Eyes project, self-bleeding subject, and yet then there's sleep, eyes closed, I am subjected. And those kind of opposition of things, the difference between like how you appear and what people think is going on, and what's actually going on, and how you actually feel. And it's interesting because it's kind of this gap of things, right? Like somebody could be really empathetic and extremely close to reality, and yet they'll never really be there entirely. Because I just feel like there's no way to 100% know or understand somebody. In some ways, everyone is intrinsically alone. Just, and relationships are, that attempting to close that gap, reaching across that void. And then there's this part too that's like about trying to express it in a different way that's not a facial expression, to actually put the words out. So with black and blue blood of ink, I think, and write a bleeding blight, trying to make their wounds more visible, trying to express what they're actually thinking in a way that isn't just like tears in the eyes or blinking. This kind of self-interpretation. I wash away the black and blue ink blood, this kind of censorship of self, like editing, like not really wanting to be seen in the same way that things get blinked away. Almost just not wanting to be overexposed. I wash away the ultimate truth. I protect the sanctuary of self. So it's, hey, like nobody totally knows and nobody really understands, and I don't want them to. Like that's a level of vulnerability that the narrator's like not ready for. So then you get to like crying in spaces on the page is, it's all the things they didn't say, that they still feel. It's the blinks between the tears and the words that weren't shared and the lines that didn't get written or were erased. So that's how I take this. I really enjoyed this piece. So thank you, Dan. What did you think of Faciana?
I like what you had to say, and I I definitely like how he used the black and blue ink to think about like bruises and to then, like you said, to try to clean it up. He says, I wash away the black and blue ink. So he used his pain to like put down his thoughts and just kind of like spill it all out, put this into writing, and what powers the words is the real story to behold. So it's like putting those emotions into it is what makes it so powerful. But if he washes that away to make it not seem like a rant and try to make it something that other people will understand and want to read. So I like that he uses alliteration there, rewarding readable record, and then he points out that his alliteration is there to make it more palatable. It alleviates the tension. And he's still using alliteration within this, alliteration attached to alleviate and then tenacious tension. But it's true. Sometimes our use of poetic devices makes it so it's not as directly painful. It can sometimes be used to express things in a way that does make it hit harder, but it also sometimes adding some rhyme and things like that can make it a little bit lighter. And we see that often where it's like the rhythm of it seems like almost a little bit too jaunty for a serious poem, but maybe they're not ready for it to have the seriousness that it really does have. But washing away the ultimate truth is unfortunate because I mean, like this writing was supposed to be a way of opening yourself, but then having to protect yourself and pull that in and still consider it like a treasure that you're hiding. Then the crying in the spaces on the page, which was the prompt, really works well because the pain is still on the page, but it's between the words now because he's taken away the ink that made it so direct. Which I think is a clever way of using this prompt. And despite the fact that he's saying he's not going to be vulnerable, this actually feels like a pretty vulnerable piece. And I like that part at the beginning where, like you already pointed out, it's like people are seeing him and assuming they understand his sadness. And this is something I see a lot with people who live on the streets. I work with them quite a bit, and people seem to have like ideas about like why people are there and what they've been through and things like that. And there's a lot of assumptions, and you can see the look on someone's face and like make all these jumps of like whether you're being judgmental of them in a negative way, or even if you're just like, oh, that poor person has been through, you kind of like make up your own story of what their life may have been. And it might be out of compassion that you're thinking this, but we don't know these people unless you do. And sometimes the filling in the blanks in a way is a loss of the real person to see that, and to have someone be able to express themselves through writing rather than just be kind of glossed over is great. Thank you, Dan, for sharing this. Even though I couldn't say the title because you're mean to me.
I'm sure that's it. He's sitting here trying to think of a title, and he's like, what is the cruelest thing I could give a Phasiana? I'm sure that's it.
Oh, he would. He texted me earlier, so looking forward to the show. It was because of that pronunciation. No, I'm just kidding. Text me later and admit that. I'm gonna do another one that we have an audio for. So put that link there and there. Oh, I see Robbie. Hey, Robbie.
Hi there. How's it going?
Oh, I'm pretty good. I saw your Spock and recognized that.
Hey, yes, I managed to put in Spock. I am. There's something I have to do. Like, I used to be bad with this, and I stopped taking water too close to my computer. But this one is such a fluke. This one time, I had coffee, and it happened to be close to the keyboard, and it happened to have the little lip in the corner open, and I don't know what it is, but when you spill water on a keyboard, the computer functions go crazy, and it takes an hour around for it to unscramble. So I was like gonna call in on the other show, but I was like, oh shit. But I am here now, and I am sane, and I am still having my coffee because I don't give a damn. I'm just having it in a safe place now.
Well, that's good.
Did you just say that you are sane and drinking coffee in the middle of the night at the same time?
Coffee does not affect me that way. When I was around 20, I literally had coffee in bed before going to sleep, and I went to sleep.
That's actually like an ADHD thing where it works.
Yes, it is. And I am a bit ADHD, or I know that the theory is that it's like you've got it's like you have such a fire in you with energy and all that coffee, it's just like adding a little bit of extra fuel. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. What's another quart of gasoline on a raging inferno, right? that thing. Yeah.
Cool. Do you want to comment on Dan's poem?
I was multitasking a bit, so I didn't get a chance to hear it properly. But I'll definitely go back and look at it to comment, because I like his work, and I like his work, and I always like to. I'm trying to catch up more on reading and all that. So, especially with my concussion, after a while there, I was just like out of it for anything, and I fell behind so much on entering any contest or doing any commenting or anything anywhere.
That's
So,
fair. Yeah, honestly, the only things I've been reading on here lately are the things in my contests. So it's an advantage that I have lots of contests, because it gets me to stay connected to everything. It motivates me to not get out of the habit of reading, because I always like it once I'm doing it. It's just I feel overwhelmed in life and don't necessarily get to it unless I have the motivation of like, hey, I have a show coming up. So we're going to listen to the audio of the next one, which is The Hostage of the King by the poet.
All right, let's do it.
Hostage of the King. As a boy, he was a lucky one. Young William Marshall was given to King Stephen. Being given as a hostage in those days was a common thing. John Marshall cared not for his son. He was a useless spare he could replace. He and King Stephen were fighting a civil war on different sides. John promised loyalty to the king, but he lied. To teach him a lesson, they tried to execute the boy. Not once, not twice, but thrice. How did he survive? He was too cute. Remember, he was a boy, and he loved to play. He played with the things he would later use and see as weapons. In the end, he proved to be a thief, and the king's heart was stolen. He saved the boy's life, and they played knights with flower stems, and he became a companion until he was returned to his uncaring father's care.
Oh, I like this kind of storytelling view of things. I also love the word thrice. It's just not used enough. Twice is all the time, but thrice, you got to throw that in there once in a while. And the
thrice more unto the breach.
Right? Yes. I got to use thrice more often. The cuteness saving him is like, honestly, that's why evolutionary young are cute. Like baby animals and things like that, it's to protect them because you're like, oh, that's cute, and you won't kill it. And like babies, you're motivated to take care of them, even if they're like crying and pooping and doing things that would upset a lot of people and be like, hey, I don't want to deal with this. But then they're so cute that like you got to. It is something that compels us to save children and also young animals. The things he would later use as weapons, it's you when you're a child and everything is playing, unless you've been kind of socialized to use them as weapons, then play is just play. I like that they played knights with flower stems. One of my favorite picture books is The Sunflower Sword, and it's the mother gives this little guy who wants to get a sword like the big guys and be stabbing dragons, and she's like, or you could play with this, and he ends up giving a flower to a dragon, and it's this adorable thing. But playing with the flower stems is great. That the king's heart is what he stole is very sweet. This is beautiful, except for the fact that he has to go back to his uncaring father. That's very sad. Yeah. Poor kid going back to the family who doesn't care about him. Very, very sad. The little like playing with little kids playing with weapons reminds me of this weekend when I was at the Renaissance Fair. One of my friends is a musician, and there was all different kinds of music at this thing, and he's like a hip hop artist who was kind of like rapping a story about like a fantasy world where the king was using all the resources and the people were not having like the water and food that they needed, and it's like a serious dark version of a fantasy story, and he's like like really like aggressively like kind of like almost like punk rocking but more hip hop, yelling it out, and there's like a million little kids just twirling around in front of him, and they have like little fairy outfits and like poofy princess dresses, and like he's like, this is the most adorable mosh pit I have ever seen. Like, what's happening? And then one of the little kids who was like this like maybe like 5-year-old girl jumps up on the stage and pretends stabs him with the toy sword, and he falls down and plays dead. Man, his heart was stolen for sure. The sweetness. I got sidetracked there. Robbie, what did you think?
I noticed that too. He was too cute, I think of how that's kind of a phrase like, oh, you're just too cute. Not cute like almost like a smart aleck. I think I thought of that phrase. That's probably not how it's being quite used here. But yeah, when someone's being cute, I've heard that as a phrase where, they're being a little too smart alecky. So I thought that was interesting that it made me think of that too. And it had a perfect voice for this poem. And God, like the brutal life that these people had, like in the title, "A Hostage of the King," and just how people were used, and even like if in regular everyday situations, you had to do so much to survive, and that's the thing, is we don't realize how good we have it in terms of life being easier. We have our woes and all that, and humanity seems to have this sick thing of where they almost want to make life more difficult for themselves. It's like, how can we do things to fuck something up? I'm swearing a lot today. But yeah, that's what it feels like. But back then, especially, like, life was so cheap. It was so short, right? It was such a short duration. And you just it was just brutal. Like the things that could happen. It's like, what happened to you today? Oh, I got gangrene, I got syphilis. Just the usual thing. The poem made me think of a lot of those kinds of things. But in terms of its specific narrative, I think about the trauma of all these people that are just like, like a lot of times they're young and they get kidnapped and they're pawns, right? And pawns in these politicians, these kings schemes, and that's like, oh, we want to get this result. Well, time to kidnap the king's son, the king's 12-year-old son that'll be traumatized for the rest of his life. Yeah, why not? In case you can't tell, I'm being sarcastic, not sardonic today about about the.
Although it would be interesting if that was still happening in today's political world, just have problems with the president and someone just kidnaps his son. Not really a thing that's done as much anymore. I mean, probably some places, but not as commonplace. So this was an interesting piece. I mean, it's a little bit of a history lesson, right? These are actual events. And fun story, my ex-husband was actually a direct, like a relative of William Marshall. And I've been to the castle that this took place in, Chepstow Castle in Wales. Beautiful place, by the way, home to like the oldest wooden door still in existence and like the oldest Roman castle still existing. So just, kind of interesting story. And I mean, these are really kind of facts. William Marshall really was held hostage by King Stephen during the Anarchy, which was what that war was called. And I don't know that, like, historically speaking, that he was actually kept alive because he was cute. I think he was kept alive because he was collateral, right? It was supposed to entice his father to, bow to the political whims of King Stephen. And instead, I think his dad kind of played it off as, well, I don't care, I can have more sons, as a way to, like, not cave to his demands. And but a dead child isn't really good leverage. And I think William Marshall's dad knew that. It's not much of a threat because if you kill my son, then you've got no leverage. So you're not going to kill my son, but I'm also not going to do what you want to get him back. So it was some scheming, right? And eventually it paid off for him. So I don't know that William Marshall's dad was actually that callous. I think he was calling a bluff. And I think he did it successfully.
Call a bluff like that is not callous, but it shows the utilitarian nature of it, where, like, just the fact that you have to call a bluff for something of this nature,
Yeah. It's not really a thing so much anymore, right? Like, we don't live, in, fiefdoms and things like that. Though it was interesting because at those times, the lords and things were, they were the ones that go to war to defend the people, or really more like their financial assets. But, hey, what's changed? Whereas now it's like you don't really see the wealthy going to war themselves. Whereas that was not true necessarily in the past. Yeah, so I thought this was cute. I thought it was a clever little take on an actual historical event, a thing that actually happened, with a little bit, I think, of fictionalization on the why didn't he kill William Marshall? Well, he was adorable. I mean, how could you? Whereas really, I think it was, nobody's gonna do what you want in exchange for a dead baby. So It didn't make logical sense to kill him. Which is just, it's a less fun story to tell, right? But I thought this was an adorable adaptation of a true story and a clever take on the prompt as well, which was a child in middle age, right? The Middle Ages, a little bit of a twist. Wonderful, right?
Our next poem is by Blue Leader 1. Robbie, do you want to read that for us?
Okay. Just get to Blue Leader 1. I didn't realize I was unmuted. I hope you didn't hear my tappy tap taps on my keyboard there. Okay. Oh, get my mic closer. Blue Leader 1. Manny Pixie Dream Girl Depoliticized. Whoo, what a title. I'm a babe universe just banged into being. So kiss me, kiss me, kiss me. See you, see two faces, 2, 4, 3. I'm new and wild, the destined old Bay and Ray. Babe, babe, babe. Mystic and fantastic. Star Child woman on the blue causeway, transmitting omnidirectionally, universally. If you miss the signal, it's your fault. See, this love of something, Violet. Violet surfs the heavens in a very special way, of high energy waves and high frequency packets, invisible and indivisible, spooky action at a distance. In doorway dreams, she haunts me. Sound whispers, she caught me, encased in time, caught and fraught in thirst, echo in the hole, endless loops, coops and sloops, incomprehensible and obtuse. No worries, Violet isn't fussy. She flows in penetrating light. Quantum entanglement was never so good. Aha! Upon the ocean of stars, stellar winds carry, stellar winds merry, merry. The hot punk rock extreme, ultra pussy scent. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Pretty, pretty puff, puff. Enough love to it to smile, rocket. Orgasmic! And boom. Sorry, I make myself laugh sometimes. There we go, end poem.
Thank you for that very enthusiastic read.
Hey, if it's gonna be an orgasm, it's gotta be enthusiastic, right? It can't be half.
You got to get your Meg Ryan acting in there from the When Harry Met Sally. Yeah, this is interesting. I like that you made the kiss kiss noises too. That was great. The transmitting omnidirectionally universally is interesting, and that really goes with like the Star Child part of it. And then where is it? Sound whispers, she taught me. But there's like learning the frequencies of the sounds, but I think it's more like getting the vibes of the person who has this attitude. And she flows in penetrating light, quantum entanglement. I kind of feel like this is like an acid trip to a certain degree. I definitely feel some like intoxication happening. Yeah, it gives me a druggy kind of feel. And pretty puff too. Like there's some, might be possibly some smoking here. And yes, there's like a sexuality in the end part, but I'm definitely seeing some substance use as well. What did you think, Babbler?
I thought this was an interesting take on the prompt for sure. To say the manic pixie dream girl depoliticized as a title. The concept of a manic pixie dream girl, right? She's kind of the trope, especially in like romances. She's this girl that is, kind of usually pretty like artsy and a little out there, and look at me, I'm so unique. Which is weird, there's a bit of irony there, right? Because it's a trope, so like by definition, like not unique. They're kind of a plot device of this female character that kind of serves as a catalyst or a backboard to like someone else's growth, someone else's learning, someone else's like development. And so like to depoliticize that to me means to make it like to not look at that like negatively, to just like fully accept that and embrace that that kind of oddness. So then when I read like I'm a baby universe just banged into being, so kiss me, kiss me, kiss me. First of all, I feel like banged into being is a double entendre there. I feel like there's some sexualization to that. And this kind of like explosion, right? Like this big bang is also has the meaning of, this realization, epiphany, this growth, right? This sudden coming into being. CU243, I'm new and wild, the destined of Bay and Ray, and there's some like wordplay here and some joy to it. I think there's like an emotiveness to this language that isn't necessarily so much about the literal translation of the words as it is the feeling that they exude. Mystic and fantastic, star child woman on the blue causeway, transmitting omnidirectionally, universally. If you miss the signal, it's your fault. She's everywhere. She's easy to see. If you don't see her, then you weren't looking. Because it's she's obvious. She stands out. Very apparent. Mystic and fantastic star child woman. Quite obviously the quote unquote manic pixie dream girl. See this love of something. Violet. I thought Violet was an interesting choice. Because I think of like ultraviolet, especially in terms of space and things like that, and light spectrums, and just kind of going in this little bit of like psychedelic perspective as how this feels to me. And it's almost like I don't know, like ultraviolet, as in like everywhere all the time. Kind of lends itself to me in this kind of like the way this poem almost feels a little technicolor. High energy waves and high frequency packets, invisible and indivisible, spooky action at a distance. In doorway dreams she haunts me, sound whispers she taught me. This way that she's just kind of stuck around and clung to things and been like ingrained into a person. No worries, Violet isn't fussy. She flows in penetrating light. Quantum entanglement was never so good. I feel like there's still like that sexualization to this, right? Like, quantum entanglement feels like a different way of saying like some form of a sexual relationship. And yet it does also very much, I think, mean like, a sort of enlightenment, which would fit in with the trope of a manic pixie dream girl. This, character that just comes in and blows your mind wide open. Aha, aha. Upon the ocean of stars, stellar winds carry, stellar winds merry, merry. The hot punk rock. Extreme ultra pussy scent, which I think to me is like a little bit punk reference, and also goes back to like that ultraviolet kind of thing. Sniff, 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 pretty, pretty, puff, puff. And again, I think that's like another play on drugs. Like it just does feel a little like acid trippy, and in that case, probably more like weed. Um, could be also something insane. I don't know. Enough to love it. Enough smile rocket. Oh no, enough to love it to smile rocket orgasmic. And I think it's getting kind of like at that mind blowing sensation, like this cosmic kind of thing. I think it's meant to be a little bit trippy, a little bit exploratory, joyful, and kind of prodding at the concept of a manic pixie dream girl. Something kind of out there. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun write. I felt like this one was really more about feeling and emoting than it was anything like particularly serious. So probably right.
Robbie, would you like to comment?
Yeah, this is the one element here that I appreciated was how it had like the ultra kind of astronomical references in general. And it's kind of like, for me, it's like I would have I've had poems like where they've been astronomical and more like surreal, and but not in a psychedelic way, and more in a existential way. So it was this was more of a different take on something that I try to do sometimes, and like this one was more purely, psychedelic. And I felt like for me, uh the ideas were more encapsulated within each stanza, and like each stanza could have been expanded into more of a poem that had kind of had more of a story to it. But then at the same time, he wanted something more psychedelic, and when you want something more psychedelic, you kind of want it to be more stream of consciousness. You don't necessarily want as much of a strong connection to from one stanza to the next, right? It's kind of a funny balance with a piece like this, where you want it disconnected enough or disjointed enough in terms of the story, where you to make it sound more psychedelic, but not so much that it takes you out of the narrative. So yeah, each from one poem to the next of this kind of style, it can be, you have to kind of make your own evaluation on the how much of that balance you want to do, right? And but I had a lot of fun reading parts of this, like the kissy kiss kiss sounds. That was off the top of my dome. And of course the loud enunciation at the end. So yeah, definitely some fun parts to this reading wise.
Thank you. So our next one that's coming up is called Golden Words, and it's by Noah Boboa Banana, which that name is a tongue twister is what I'm looking for. I can't even say the description of it. Well, I almost said a mouthful, but then it has banana in it, and I just felt like that was going to get me in trouble, but now I said it. That name is okay. Golden Words. Within many wooden desks, you may find golden notes, ones that fill the savored words only you can show. A blurry frame of frozen lakes cannot hide these memories made, words written through one's mind many wouldn't dare to find. This written proof of one's pain or joy are filled with waves of tears they shed. They found beauty in their pain. They found sorrow in their joy. Contradictions written down brought tears to someone's eyes. Though they felt these words for years on end, the written proof brings tears to shed. Gentle hands handled these parts, careful not to rip it apart. When water softens, papers hold. They must know it's made of gold. These spaces are filled with tears from someone who held it in. They got it out through ink and pain, a beauty they could never name. End poem.
Lovely read. I thought this was a lovely take on the prompt of, crying in the spaces on a page. It has a nice rhythm and flow to it, and there's something really kind of warm and almost like romantic in a literary way about the idea of golden words within many wooden desks. I think of like the smell of libraries and the feel of an old oak desk, and it feels like pleasantly antique. I don't know how else to describe that feeling. Uh, it's nostalgia, but it's a certain kind of nostalgia. A blurry frame or frozen lakes cannot hide these memories made. Words written through one's mind, many wouldn't dare to find. This kind of perusing your own memories, looking for the perfect way to describe them. The blurry frame and frozen lakes are like, to me, it's saying like photographs can fade and landscapes change and time kind of erodes physical things, but written words, kind of freeze it in a way, kind of capture it in a moment, based on the words that you've chosen. And not just like the imagery of a place, but the feeling of a place. This is written proof of one's pain or joy, the emotional center of the writing. It's almost like writing as a record, as a kind of marker for saying like, this, I felt this way in this place, in these words. And this capturing of something that is otherwise fleeting. um Gentle hands handle these parts, careful not to rip it apart. It makes me think of reading someone's book, someone's journal, someone's poetry, someone's writing, and kind of taking care of it, kind of holding it as something valuable but also delicate. These are someone's actual feelings captured in here, and it should be treated almost as something sacred. When water softens, papers hold. They must know it's made of gold. This is valuable. Like the writing holds value because they contain human feeling and interpretation and something greater than just a strict observation. These spaces are filled with tears from someone who held it in. All of the feelings that someone has and their ability to kind of put that into words. The pages become a container for emotions that could never be said. And there's like value in that. I think this is a really pretty piece. That kind of talks about like the beauty of writing emotion and preserving feelings in the best way that people know how to communicate, via writing. There are lots of ways to communicate. I don't mean to say like writing is a superior form of communication. I mean the words that people know how to find, right? The ways to convey feeling, to kind of prod at someone else's empathy. So, a time capsule for humanity. So I thought this was a lovely piece.
Wow, I don't know how to follow that. I feel like you pointed out everything that I was going to, but said it in a more eloquent way. So I'm just going to say what Babbler said. Because I honestly, as you were going through, I'm like, yep. That's you covered it all. So excellent comment, Babbler. Robbie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it reminded me of a bit of the alchemical idea, because when it says golden words, I think if there's a book, a Chinese book, I think, The Golden Pill, and there's that whole, not ancient, but would it be medieval period idea of like, finding the golden, like the how to make, lead into gold, that sort of idea. Um, there's like transformations kind of here, and there's also, well, like I look at these spaces are filled with tears from someone who held it in. They got out through ink and pain, a beauty they could never name. And it's this idea of letting out what's inside that's taking up so much space and that's causing pain, so that it doesn't do that anymore. And that there's a transformative power to that, right? Like you don't maybe necessarily turn it into something overtly positive, but you're taking the negativity out of yourself, and that kind of is a little bit alchemical to me. And this had just a bit of a medievalish sort of a feel to me. Within many wooden desks, you may find golden notes, ones that fill with savored words only you can show. It kind of gives me that feel of the magic, and that sort of a thing. And I really like the tone of the poem because of that.
Awesome. All right. Our next poem is Map Creating Time by Moss and Memory. So I'm putting that on the boards. This one here. And there. And Babbler, I think it might be your turn to read.
I do believe you are correct. This is A Map Creating Time by Moss and Memory. Walking in the woods that day, the wind stirred up just right. I raised my arms and took to flight, soaring above the treetops, dancing like musical notes written in a measure, playing hidden music, rising, a tune I almost didn't want to know, from a time when I was not allowed to sing or soar. Instead, I sat in stillness, tracing teardrops on a page, a map creating time, thin currents of ink running off the edges, that waited on a dusty shelf for me to find that day when I was ready to let my wings unfold. End poem.
Excellent read. Thank you, Babbler. I quite enjoyed this. It had a nice flow to it, maybe partly because of your excellent read. But it has a great kind of opening to, in my opinion. Walking in the woods kind of like puts me in that mindset. And then it has it kind of plays with a few different senses. So you feel the wind and you hear the music, and you like feel the tears, and I felt like I was immersed in it, which I really enjoy. And you can just imagine, like, when I hear things, I tend to act it out. So I raise my arms, and then you feel yourself take flight. And there's something magical about that flying feeling, um, and that thinking about when you didn't have the same opportunities, the same freedom. This makes me think of that Sia song. I think it's called Broken Wing. Um, yeah, the lyrics are going through my mind. So remembering when you didn't have the opportunity to sing and to speak for yourself because you were oppressed by it can be a situation, a relationship, society, all different levels. But to have that feeling where you have more of your own ability to do what you like, that freedom, and be able to fully express yourself is fantastic. And to know that you can do that and still find yourself stuck in stillness, because mentally you're still there. So it starts off with like that soaring, but then you realize they're not ready for that yet. There's the option now, but the past is still so fresh. And the teardrops on the page, a map creating time. I really like that. Thin currents of ink running off the edges, because your sadness does kind of change your story and your direction, and it can have that impact. And that one day I was ready to let my wings unfold. It takes time, where you, even if you have that freedom, you might not take the leap right away. And that's okay. What were your thoughts, Robbie?
Well, there was a couple of things that this reminded me of. I thought of the Map Oracle deck by Colette Baron Reed, and it's like it has all these events in time, like they kind of like the things that we typically go through, like uh, leaving somebody, or like quitting a job, that kind of thing, and it represents it in this kind of archetypal way, like the ghost lands, that sort of thing. So it kind of reminded me of that, with kind of the locality of ooh, I like that. That's a title for me. The locality of emotion. Ooh. It don't let me forget it. I'm gonna have to write it down after the show. The locality of emotion. But this also reminded me of some thoughts I recently had, where it's kind of like what you were talking about, where you still feel stuck. And there's sometimes where you really are doing the best you can, but the situation is so overwhelming that you really feel like you don't have, like you can only go so far. You just, you're stuck, because it's an awful feeling when you're stuck, not because of yourself, but because of outside circumstances. And that's awful in a different way. Like, it's a crappy feeling when you feel you're not good enough, or that you feel that you only have yourself to blame. But when it's only, or it's primarily I keep saying outdoor, outside circumstances, there's nothing you can really do about it. And I thought about that in spades with especially during my concussion, since WSID did nothing, absolutely nothing, made my life worse, if anything. And there were a couple of points a little bit before and after that where I said to myself, and I want to write a poem about it, only as good as you can, or something like a title, something along those lines, where you really are trying your best, and you're trying to be okay with that, and saying, okay, well, I'm not going to beat myself up in that, but then you have all these outside circumstances just like slam right into you, and you don't, and when you get out of that, when those circumstances change, and again, this is something that I felt, you feel so much better, and you realize just how much those circumstances have held you back. So the poem reminds me of that too. And I enjoy, again, the locality of emotion of this, where you have like these distinct moments where they're feeling something. Instead, I sat in stillness, tracing teardrops on a page, a map creating time. And that's the thing. I like the idea of, you have both a map here and a page. And I kind of want to play with that artistically too, or poetically, is the idea of a book, and you're like putting everything into this book, or how the book works. I was thinking of, like, in Doctor Strange, the Darkhold and all that, and I was thinking of how all these different books could magically protect themselves. Like, like you have one that makes you forget that it exists, or you have another one that, like, burns at your hands, that sort of thing. But I was thinking about books that are more like psychologically based in how they could defend themselves. I thought that would make for an interesting like RPG-ish sort of thing to play with, or something poetical or something like that. So yeah, this poem was cool for that bit. It made me think of all these different things.
Babbler, what about you?
For me, this piece is kind of about finding an old piece of writing and realizing it is like a message from your past self, and like a map um to like recovery and healing, but also back to who you used to be at the same time. um it's the beginning of the piece feels like really free, right? Walking in the woods that day, the wind stirred up just right. I raised my arms and took to flight. This kind of recollection of like a really good day. um this moment of liberation, like self-discovery or just enjoyment, this experience of freedom. Dancing like musical notes written in a measure, this kind of joy. um and then it's kind of put into a historical context, a tune I almost didn't want to know, from a time when I was not allowed to sing or soar. So this kind of moment of freedom in otherwise, forced captivity or restraint. My mind goes to like, childhood abuse, or extremely strict parents, or something along those lines. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is. That's just kind of where mind goes. And then it's like this flight isn't just a moment of joy. It's kind of like a recovery of joy. It's a re-experiencing. This not allowed feels like family expectations or trauma or social pressure, or maybe even like illness or something like that. But there was once a version of the narrator who could be free, despite the constraints. So then we get to the middle, where he's talking about tracing teardrops on a page. So like, even as this old joy was experienced, there's like this kind of sadness that's tied up with it, right? These, the sadness, and even the current sadness of like remembering that time. So then you have this overlap of feelings, a map creating time, thin currents of ink running off the edges. The map is kind of like this old writing, this remembering a way things used to be. um and then years later, they become like a map back to the person who wrote them. They waited on a dusty shelf for me to find. um and there's this like rediscovery for me to find on a day when I was ready to let my wings unfold, to remember that you do know how to fly. And even when times were hard, there was a time that you knew how to fly. And kind of recalling that feeling and recalling that ability, and kind of the old tears, the old writing, it became a map back to learning how to feel free and how to be hopeful. It suggests that like painful writing has purpose. Remembering who you used to be. It's almost like a calling to go back and read your old poetry journals. Although sometimes that can be a different kind of painful, depending on what they were like. This it's kind of a recollection. It's about like healing and self recognition, and a bridge between who you are now and who you used to be, and the things that have changed and things that are stayed the same, or things that you need to remember about yourself. So I thought it was a rather lovely piece.
Awesome. So our next one is by T. Manzano, and I have noticed that you are in the chat. Hello, T. Here is, I am going to say your title wrong, I'm sorry. Yuneg Fang. The pills arrive in childproof bottles from factories I'll never see, crossing oceans to reorganize the weather in my head. Oops, sorry, that it's good doing a weird echo thing. Just a second.
I can hear the echo as well. Do you want me to read this while you take a moment to figure out where your echo is?
Hold on a sec. T came on. I think that's when it. T, are you muted?
I don't. The only person I
now
saw
Babbler's
join
gone.
was Pam.
I'm here.
Oh no, T Manzano was. Someone dropped off.
Oh, I saw Pam come in and out.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Pam, that was Pam. Okay, T Manzano is muted. Oh, maybe the echo came in when Pam came in. Do we hear any more echo now?
I don't.
No. Okay. Okay, well, I think we're good for now.
Okay. I will try it again. Okay. Excuse me. Yuan Fang by T. Manzano. The pills arrive in childproof bottles from factories I'll never see, crossing oceans to reorganize the weather in my head. I like how they say it in quieter frequencies, as if suicide arrives with the clipboard and a polite cough, tapping a pencil against the doorway, waiting for me to become measurable. Please notify your doctor if you experience worsening depressions or thoughts of self-harm. Experience? Seriously? Like nausea, dry mouth, tremors in the hands, dizziness, as if sad belongs on the same checklist as blurred vision and loss of appetite. Not lying face down on bathroom tile trying to calculate whether your mother would survive the phone call. That phone call. Not driving home at night, wondering whether turning the wheel slightly left, maybe right, counts as an intrusive thought or a decision. They say it so casually you'd think a depressed person still had enough distance from themselves to document the fire while standing inside it. As if I'm supposed to pause mid-collapse and think, better notify Pfizer. Tell the smiling woman in the allergy commercial meadow that the imported chemistry has started teaching my body new ways to disappear. She keeps laughing anyway. Sunlight in her hair, bowl of oranges on the counter, acoustic guitar somewhere behind the narration. Meanwhile, a voice, soft as hotel lighting, lists the possible side effects. Fever, vomiting, suicidal thoughts, sudden confusion, like suffering is just another manufactured defect, may cause suicidal thoughts, may cause, like sadness, wandering into the wrong room. The gun loaded itself. No, you don't get to chemically rearrange the writing in my head, then act surprised when smoke leaks from the outlets. You don't get to hand suffering a trademarked name and call it treatment. Cheap things from far away, dissolving slowly under my tongue, and somewhere offshore, another shipment keeps moving towards port, while the commercial fades to white. End poem. Babbler, do you want to start us off with this?
Absolutely. I really like this piece. I think the title here is important. The Yuan Fang. Yuan Fang it means distant place, like far off place, but it kind of is like in a sort of dreamy, longing sort of way. You know, it's like a yearning. You know, which works really well with the concept of this piece, you know, which is about drugs and side effects. Not the fun kind of drugs, the pharmaceutical kind of drugs, non-recreational drugs. You know, the pills arrive in childproof bottles from factories I'll never see. You know, so they're made somewhere that is just solely conceptual. You know, and maybe in China. You know, crossing oceans to reorganize the weather in my head. So these are, you know, it's some kind of drug. in my mind, it's an antidepressant or like an SSRI or something like that, and yet, additional depression is a side effect. And it all feels really dreamy and distant and kind of dissociative, you know. As if suicide arrives with a clipboard and a polite cough, just like, it's time for your depression appointment, very like formalized, please notify your doctor if you experience worsening depression or thoughts of self-harm. It's like this is a drug taken by someone who is already experiencing these things. So the idea that something that's given to them that is supposed to help might actually make it worse is just kind of horrific. And yet, it's like this footnote that's spoken too fast and in microscopic writing at the end of a commercial, like it's nothing major, nausea, dry mouth, tremors in the hands, dizziness. Oh yeah, and you might kill yourself. Is kind of like it's trivialized, and it feels like something written by someone who hasn't experienced depression. The stanza here, this not lying face down on bathroom tile, trying to calculate whether your mother would survive the phone call, that phone call. And I've been there, like this, literally there have been times in my life where it's like, well, I can't do that to my mom. And that's like the one thing I could hold on to. As dark and terrible as that is, it's sometimes where you end up, not driving home at night, whether turning the wheel slightly left, maybe right, counts as an intrusive thought or a decision. Yep, I've been there too. That is hardcore dissociation. And it's weird because when you are depressed and dissociated, these things do feel distant and far off, and yet they're not. This is the moment. And it does feel, in some ways, trivialized even to yourself. Although for me, there's, still this logical part of my brain that's in the back screaming. But it's so distant that it's hard to hear, and then this idea, this kind of sardonic, as if I'm supposed to pause mid-collapse and think, better notify Pfizer. Like, oh yeah, these are those side effects they're talking about. Would you look at that? It's you don't really think about or notice these things. Honestly, for me at least, you don't really think anyone cares. There's this in the allergy commercial meadow, which is funny because it like kind of is like the recycled meadow. Is this for Benadryl? Or an antidepressant? And the imported chemistry has started teaching my body new ways to disappear. This deepening dissociation, this deepening depression, paired against this backdrop of like overly happy imagery, laughing and sunlight and a bowl of oranges and an acoustic guitar, and it's all very like manufactured and fictional feeling. While they say horrific things like they aren't horrific. Fever, vomiting, suicidal thoughts, sudden confusion. Like, you should be happy and everything should be great. Oh yeah. But also these, just this trivialization of pain and dissociation, and wanting to be better, and I think that's the Yuan Fong, this wanting, something that feels so distant. Wanting to be happy again, wanting to feel like life is worth it again, while taking a drug that may do the exact opposite. It's a pretty dark rite, honestly, but it's biting, and there's dark humor here. There's anger in it, and I rather enjoyed this piece.
I enjoyed it too, and I think it's a little bit too familiar, honestly. I have pills that have those kinds of warnings on it, and it always feels ironic that it it says that it's going to have the opposite effect of what it's supposed to. I mean, that's true of all my medications. It's like it's supposed to make you not have seizures. It's like may cause seizures, but not supposed to make you not have a sore stomach. May cause a sore stomach, but it's so much worse, I feel like, when it is mental health, because it doesn't feel like it should just be another thing on that list. It's like your emotions and your all of that, of like your being that feels more than physical, to be just another thing on that checklist is really difficult to be told. The like I like that it separates it, like nausea and dry mouth and tremors of the hands, but no, sad doesn't belong on that checklist. I'm I get that feeling. Now, part of it is because my SAD is a chemical-based problem, but yes, it is still it's a different kind of thing. Um, but yes, I have that message on my things. If you experience worsening depression, but I really liked the part in this that pointed out that a depressed person doesn't have the ability necessarily to recognize that's where they're at, or if they are, they're too involved in it to get help. Um, the distance from themselves to document the fire, that is a really hard part. Once you're in that deep, you don't necessarily have the mindset of like, oh, I should change my medication. um that's a different thing. I really liked the part that said, as if I'm supposed to pause mid collapse and think, better notify, because you don't. Or if you do, then there's that kind of feeling of like, so is it because of the meds? Is it just how I would be either way? Are the meds what are stopping me from doing it, whereas I would have been even worse? There's that questioning of yourself too. um I like the description of the ads for the pills, because it's true. There always is that stupid meadow, and it's been a while since I've actually watched like real TV, so I don't see ads very much anymore. But I definitely remember back when I did, having like all the fine print stuff said very quickly at the end. It'll be like, and you'll feel like you can be with people again. Side effects may include, antisocial behavior and isolation and all the things. And it's just like they run through them really fast, all of the dangers. And sometimes the meds themselves were for something minor. It was like, do you have a restless foot? Have these. Side effects may include death. And it's just like, what?
Cycles, man, food, death. There we
Yes.
go. I missed my chance the first time. I wanted to jump in as the voice while you were talking. I thought that would be perfect.
Right? But it's just they really make it seem like it's less than it is, when it's obviously a really big deal. And there is this kind of fear of not having good care, because some of these medications are very dangerous. Now, I'm not totally anti-meds. I am on quite a few myself, and they do help me. I am in big trouble if I don't take them mentally. But you got to be careful and know what you're getting, and have the good stuff. The childproof bottles made me giggle a little bit, because I have a really hard time opening childproof bottles. My hands don't work very well. And it always seems like so unfair that like at the times when I need medication, that's when my hands work the least, and then I can't open things. But from far away places, and like maybe there's different medication standards there. Not that I can say North America has some great standards right now. But there, so there's there's trouble in what they're doing. But I think the main thing here is the way that people downplay mental health, and not recognize that it's such a huge deal. And yeah, this was just great. I liked the way it worked with looking at the ads and looking at how you feel. I related to it on many levels. Did everybody comment on that now?
I didn't get a chance to yet.
Okay.
I want
Just
to.
Robbie.
Yeah, I'm here. I want to. I'm hoping I can find the song. Well, yeah, I should be able to find the song. And there's one song that encapsulates this so well. It's from like the Ghost in the Shell anime. One of the there's a few kind of sub shows of it or whatever. And like like I remember one of the lyrics goes, it said they give me pills for my pills. When I complain, they said chills. Or when I complain, they said chill. And then it says something like about they'll give me my pill for dollar bills, and it's just it encapsulates this sort of feeling so perfectly. And it's like that's the thing. You sometimes you kind of feel stuck, like you feel like any choice is bad in some circumstances. I'm talking there in chat about the shingles vaccine, and like how for me it's like this shitty choice because you know don't take it and then maybe get a chance of but if I do take it, I have a chance of getting a seizure because I'm epileptic. Woohoo, what a choice. you know and yeah, and then of course there's the risks just in general a little bit with taking the shingles vaccine, but but just in general that like it's like you were saying where some of like you feel like sometimes the side effects of a medicine are worse than the disease. And what one thing that's frustrating, oh my god, this happened to me. You remember about the when I got the temporary aphasia, right? Because they without telling me, I don't know if you heard about that, babbler, but without telling me, they switched my seizure meds from uh, a gradual or gradual sustained release to quick release. Oh, let's not tell them. And I'm convinced that at least was part of it, like 70-30, like physiological versus mental, right? Because the effect was so strong, and it's just insanity, that they would do something like that. Uh, and it sucks when you're left with these horrible choices, and you don't know what to do sometimes in terms of well, that's the thing. It's a dual thing. There's the horrible choices you have to make sometimes, but also you have to be like a hawk. You have to keep yourself informed because you don't know sometimes. They won't tell you the most awful effects or what have you. You have to be your own advocate that way. So yeah, the poem really covers that well. All the surreal, all the decisions you shouldn't have to make but that you do, and the research that you shouldn't have to do but you do.
Yeah. We are basically out of time, so we are not going to finish up the whole contest. We're going to have one carryover from this contest. We have one carryover we didn't get to from last week, and we have a new contest that is going that is still open. So look for my contest long way down. And it is a novel that I just finished reading by Jason Reynolds. It's in verse, so if you like poetry, it's a good novel for you. And it is about a teen who's confronted by the ghosts of his past while he's on the way to avenge his brother. It's gritty, it's heartwarming. It's just, I loved this book so much. And The quote that I chose from it is it possible for a hug to peel back skin of time and toughened and raw bits, the irritated and imitating dry spots, the parts that bleed? So that is, a boy who's being hugged during like one of the worst times in his life, and wondering how much being reunited with someone can affect you. So really intense book, and I hope that it comes with some good poetry. We have 5 days left in that contest, and we are now out of time. So thank you, Babbler and Robbie, for your excellent comments. Thank you to everyone who wrote for the show, and thank you, Pam, for being our background awesomeness.
Warning: poetry may cause you existential angst.
This is true.